Hey everybody, Jeremy here from Nobot Studios. Welcome to another GRIT Galaxies RPG project update. I am here to let you know about all the latest and greatest stuff that's going on with this thing. It has been about a month since my last video, so I thought I'd put one out. And it seems like this is kind of the interval for me every 4 weeks or so, and I think I'm going to stick with it. So this last month, I have not done much of any playtesting at all for this game. Part of that is because of the holidays. It's sometimes hard to get folks together for games and testing during that time. But mostly it's because I've been working just nonstop on the rule book. My main focus has been like transferring the information from the old format to the new format, working on layout stuff, cleaning up the text, organizing things, kind of streamlining generally. So it's just been a lot of tedious work. And I'm happy to say that the entire document has been transferred over. I kind of reached that threshold last week. And now I'm getting into actually adding more stuff to the book, which is a good place to be in. There'll be testing that'll happen probably within this next month, but yeah, it's just been rulebook only, and that'll probably be the main focus again for a while. There's a lot of work to do, but I'm seeing progress day by day. So one of the biggest things that I did to start this last week was to completely update the table of contents. Okay, so I redid it. There's 2 pages like the fantasy book, but I've kind of cleaned up stuff, made it more efficient to fit everything in the space. Now the numbers here are just placeholders. That's all going to change because I don't really know what the page numbers are going to be yet. So I've got 2 pages of this. I got this first one and then the second one, and that's kind of how it's going to look. GM's guide may have one line added, maybe. We shall see. But for now, they're pretty symmetrical, when you look at the spread. I may add some graphical elements to this, but probably not. I kind of really like the clean look of it, so we'll see. So to just kind of run through some things. The introduction, compared to fantasy, I have trimmed that down a lot and made more space for illustration. So that has changed. I have basically streamlined what I have written in that section. Not as much the step-by-step or like selling pitch for the game, and more just like introduction to it, some core kind of points, and how to use the book and an abbreviation thing. That's about it. So I'm happy with how that turned out. And then to get into the core rules, those are going to be pretty close to what the fantasy book is. It's all the basic stuff, how to play the game. There have been some things that got moved around a little bit, but mostly it's the same. There's going to be quite a number of things that are rewritten though. And I have done a lot of work there already, so there's not a ton left in that. Just, updating it to the sci-fi version of stuff, right? So if I'm talking about gear and kits and stuff, it's all going to be related to, galaxies. And then like food and doses, those are updated, that kind of stuff. So it's just bringing the theme into this version, right? So... And then moving into the characters section, I have been more aware of art placement in this book. So I am putting in placeholders for where the art will be as I kind of lay out the format and put the text in. And so I'm putting in art in very specific places. And it's kind of a move away from what I did with the fantasy book, where in some places I just sort of added in art, which is all good, but I was like, oh, the text is in there. I have this space. What do I do with it? now I'm like, I want a piece of art right here, and then I'm going to put the text around it. So it'll be slightly different that way. Not a lot though. So that's one thing. The features and quirks for the characters, I have made 2d12 tables for, so those are symmetrical. I think in the fantasy book it's like a d10 and d20, something like that. So that's a little different, and I added one table just for the detail section that just you can roll on to see how your character arrived on the ship, because I think that's a fun detail that could be good to do on the fly if you're building a character quickly. So it's a nice little detail thing, right? Moving into the GM's guide, that has been the most organized or reorganized section in the book so far. I've been moving kind of a lot around, and I've been really mindful of the spread. So, you lay the book down on the table, you got the 2 pages facing each other. I'm looking at that, like what information works well together in the spread. So I've been kind of working through that with organizing things. I've added another table for obstacles and traps. That's another D20 table. That may change slightly. I'm not quite sure on it yet. I've added 1 page for running the ship. So these are tips and pointers for the GM for how to run the big ship that the characters like live on and have missions that they go on from. Okay. So there's a table in there of like a D20 table of different areas of the ship that you could, possibly have adventures in even, or have some kind of, part of the scenario take place in. So that's a GM thing. I've got another page of how to deal with vehicles because, as I've said before in other videos, I am not making Grit Galaxies about vehicles. Vehicles are going to be a part of the game, but not like a main function of the game. Like I don't want to make a combat simulator for vehicles and stuff. That is not my focus. So, but it has to be said, has to be pointed out, like things that are going to be relevant for the GM to understand and to implement if needed. I have also expanded the optional rules, and it's looking like probably 3 or 4 pages at this point, but we shall see. And then at the very end of the GM section, I'm putting legendary places and notable NPCs. And this is in addition to all the builders, right? Like there's a story builder, there's an NPC builder. You could do all those things already, but this I laid out like 2 D20 tables, 1 each, of like really cool legendary places that could be part of your adventures, and then a D20 table of like interesting, notable characters, NPCs that could be put into your games really quickly. The only thing with that is just, throw a stat block on and you're good to go. So it's got those that I added in. And then moving into the monsters section, pretty much everything is as expected. I have talked about the scum and lineages. Those are nothing new. In the back of the scum lineages, like behind, the listings, I am putting in a couple pages of how to run a scum game. So if you wanted to run bad guys, you can build bad guy characters and do that for your adventures. So I'm giving you that option in there, and that's going to be 2 pages. The only other thing that I have changed in there really is that I'm adding a 4th tier to the tiered based setup. So before in Grit Fantasy I had mooks, goons, and bosses. I'm going to have 4 of those now. I haven't decided on the title of it yet, but it'll be mooks, goons, like tough guy, second in command, and then a boss. All right, so I think the stat block is going to be like +1, 10, 1. I think it needed that extra thing. And plus, you can use the Mighty D4 to pick one of those tiers, right? So that's being put in, which is, I think, pretty cool. Everything else, like the monsters, are all going to be laid out identical to Grit Fantasy. So it'll be one full page for one monster, have the, narrative tags, features, description, and then one illustration. So those are good to go. Those are all filled out and ready to go. I could technically start illustrating and filling those in now because all that information is in. And I don't really think I need to test much of that stuff because I already know kind of how all that works. So there may be a couple weird ones that I want to get in some games, but that's about it. So that's all for monsters. And then I moved the vehicle section to after monsters. So before I had it like, I think it was after characters, kind of in between characters and GM's guide were the vehicles. I decided to move it into the GM's guide past monsters. I think monsters take priority over vehicles. So we're going to have a vehicle section there. There'll be basic rules on how all that works. I'm getting more of a clear idea what I want to do there. There's a listing of 10 vehicles. So you're going to have 10 vehicles to work with. There's a table for that too. So random table you can use. I'm also putting in 2 pages for power suits. That may become 2 more pages. So it might be 4 total. We shall see. But those I'm looking at as being sort of a secondary character in a way, right? You're going to be able to build these power suits, which I think is cool. So there's going to be some options with those. And some slightly different rules, but not very different. It'll be very streamlined how they can kind of mesh in with the characters. So to me, they're just an extension of the character. That's how they'll be played. Okay. Now, the big one, loot. I decided to streamline the loot section. I no longer doing 20d20 tables. That is utterly ridiculous as far as the amount of work that's concerned, like involved in that. And also, I felt like the sci-fi setting didn't really require that many, not as much as far as loot is concerned compared to Grit Fantasy. There's still going to be 240 loot items and 200 that I have to write. Fortunately, I have all 200 that I have to write, like with titles now. So all I have to go do now is write in the mechanics. So I've got that all set up and ready for like sitting down and just knocking them out. But that won't happen until everything else is done. But that is the big change, and that has cut down quite a number of pages. Right now, I think the page count is like 134. So I think the range will be between 130 and 134, maybe 136 at the very most. So that's kind of what I'm seeing as the final count. So it is less than Grit Fantasy. However, it has more information because the layout is cleaner and more organized. So, and then the very last thing, I added a quick rules section. So it's going to be a 2-page spread that'll just deal with the core rules, and that will show you just the basics of how to play the game. So if you want a quick reference on things, it'll be right there. And this is something that you could use for your players, if they need kind of a reference for things, that will be what you can use. I'll probably put a blurb in the front of the book about that you can actually copy and use that for your personal use. So you'll have that. And that was something that was brought up on Discord and in a number of my games. And so I listened and decided to put that in. Okay. So that is what's going on with the rule book. Still a lot of work to do, but I am making progress. And like the other videos, I've got a couple lineages to show off. So first one, I have the Huzzle right in front of me here. This is just like this fuzzy little bright colored, basically hamster in space. They're quick, compact, fuzzy, and agile. So their ability right now, currently, is speedy defense, so they can take an extra dodge reaction each round. However, they can only use one focus die per turn, and that's just the usual rules. So these guys have light-sensitive eyes. They often wear like huge goggles. They have remarkable reflexes and agility, and that's because they've adapted to their home world, which is very dangerous. They have the tendency to be anxious and hyper, but they make excellent scouts and explorers. So that is the Huzzle. The next one is the Mechroid. This is one of my personal favorites, and I think one of the favorites so far in the testing. So these guys are basically just robots, right? They're clunky, mechanical, metallic, and sentient. Their ability is basically that they have a robotic build, so they do not eat, sleep, breathe. They're immune to poison and the vacuum of space. So environmental hazards for them is really not an issue, which is kind of huge, actually. So these guys, they come in a wide range of makes, shapes, and sizes. They're powered by these energy crystals that are kind of magical, actually, and that's what gives them their unique sentient personalities. So they are also vulnerable to hacking and mechanical wear and tear. So that's one drawback. Like sand and corrosives could also be a problem. But overall, these guys are fun to play, versatile, and a good lineage to have on the team. So that is the Mechroid. And that pretty much wraps everything up for what I wanted to talk about for this update. Things are going well, making progress in the book. I expect to be in a really good place the next video I make of these for these updates, and hopefully working on some artwork. That would be fantastic. So anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate you, and as always, keep rolling those dice.